that's wait, hang on, go ahead. My computer just decided to flip over someplace else. Go ahead. I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, good. We're here. Technology. Woo. Hello and welcome to the Creative Imposter Live. I'm your host, Andrea Klunder. If you have not been here before, welcome. If you have been here before, welcome back. We're here with the incredible Kim Boudreau Smith, and we were just talking about AI voices, accents, languages, robot dogs just moments before going live. So who knows what direction this conversation is going to go?
Right.
However, I invited Kim onto the show because we met through a women entrepreneurship group, and I saw a post in the group about imposter syndrome. And of course,
Mm.
because this show is called The Creative Imposter, anytime I see someone talking about that topic, I'm like, ooh, I want to connect with this person. And Kim, thank you for joining me. Thank you
Mm.
for streaming with my audience. I want to start not with any of the questions that I sent you in advance. I want to start because you sent out an email newsletter this morning.
Ooh, I did, didn't I?
You
Oh,
did, and you probably programmed it ages ago, and I don't even know if you remember what it had in
hold on. Let
it.
me sit up straight, Andrea, since we're coming.
You had a line in here that really stood out to me. I'll tell you. Um, you
Okay.
said in your newsletter, our external communication is only as strong as our internal communication. What do you mean?
I have so many female clients, and don't get me wrong, I do market to females. However, I do have a couple male clients, and so I don't want to exclude the men. But so many of these people want to communicate more effectively, more. Ooh, that here we come. Let's just get it for 2026. That A word, authentically. It's overused. In my world, it's definitely overused. Authentically, more boldly, in what are in these rooms that they're walking in. So, in other words, they don't want to show up just in this room this way, but then they go over here in this room, they're showing up a little bit less. They're shifting in the rooms, which means that you're allowing your audience to socializely shift you, and then we're faking it and we can go down the other road. But what happens is, in a bold, all authentic, very direct communication has got to begin from within. So that internal communication, aka imposter outfit, imposter identity, imposter, mask, and then that critical dialogue seems to be the one that dominates a lot of people. And we can change that. So, our internal dialogue, if it's critical, it will come out in our verbal dialogue some way or another. And that's what I mean. Our external dialogue, our external communication, our presence is only as good as how strong as our internal dialogue is, our internal communication is.
I love that because I think, part of my background is as a performer. I have a theater background, so
No.
I've been an actor, and there was a good part of my life where I felt very confident and very comfortable being on stage, playing a role, performing as a character. But if you had asked me to do public speaking as me, as Andrea,
Mm,
no.
yeah.
And, people would say, well, I don't understand. You're on stage all the time. Like, you're a performer. Like, why would you not want to give a speech? Why would that make you nervous? And I'm like, because it's very different when you are up there in the public eye as you versus as a prepared role or prepared character. This is why also in theater I am terrified of improv. Like I like to have characters and scripts and know my blocking and know my staging and know, when I say this, I'm supposed to cross stage left and I'm supposed to hand the glass to this other character. The improv thing freaks me out. I'm getting better at it, but it does freak me out. And
I
so
love
when
improv. I
do you?
love it. I
This is not
love it.
surprising.
But I've had to work at that. So I just want to jump in and say that.
Yeah. Um, so in this idea of working with folks to become more confident in their authenticity, let's say, and I know, yeah, authenticity, I think it was like the word of the year several
It was.
years ago or something like that. So it did get kind of played out back then, but it is still something that people are looking for. In this series that we're doing right now, we're in the midst of when your art becomes your job. And I was thinking about you for this series because I think that the more you care about the work that you are doing, the more that it is meaningful and important to you, and the more that you consider it your craft or your art or your passion, the more we can be focused on trying to get it right, or um, being afraid that we're not fully measuring up to the expectation that we've set for ourselves. And so, have you noticed with the types of women or non-women that you work with, the types of clients that you work with in your past, have you seen a correlation between people who have a very passionate connection to the work that they're doing, or people who have turned something that they love into their work, um, with these forms of shrinking or feeling less confident in the way they present themselves?
Sure, all the time. I see it all the time. All the time. So first of all, I actually, this conversation was just happening in my home this morning over coffee. It's just so interesting that you're bringing that up. Andrea, you and I are business owners. At one time, I worked for a corporation, and it goes back to the analogy and the example of, yes, you're on stage, you're acting, you're representing a specific part of within this realm. So let's take that. You are an engineer in GM. So when you are out networking or representing or talking, you're at dinner or something. Yes, I'm an engineer. I'm a top notch female engineer. At GM, we're more comfortable uh, representing something that is not ours, even though we work for it. Like the acting, you're in that part. But when we step out into our own businesses, we are now, like what you had said. Gosh, I've had parts on stage, but when it came to the public speaking, we are representing ourselves. So we have a tendency to shrink or over explain, pull back, especially around the tap dance of asking for money. It's like we have to give a dissertation for the reason why we are asking for this, because now we're not representing GM or the part when you were acting. We are representing us, our business. This is us. And we have a tendency to let our lack of worth maybe creep in, or the imposter creep on in. I'm not good enough in this moment, so I better go get another certification or take another class, another course, more, when we are good enough right now in this very given moment. So yes, I see a lot of that with women that we work on, and that all goes back to your first question. If the inner is saying you're not good enough. Oh, comparison. Because you haven't been doing this for 5 years, and Kim over here has been doing it for 10. And Kim's probably this, and then compare it. Oh my God, I feel so behind all of that. It's going to come out on the external communication, whether it's silent, whether it's verbal, whether it's energetic, whether it's how we pose and do ourselves. And I always say, and my husband reminds me of this: desperate people will do desperate things. And that's when that internal dialogue is playing at us. Then we start doing things, especially in our business, that do not align with us because we're being driven by something else.
Okay, I want to come back to this idea of authenticity because this has already gone totally off the rails of where I had planned to go, but I love it. Because I also was listening to, okay, if anyone follows my personal account on Instagram, not the Creative Imposter, but Andrea Klunder, I just posted whatever that little circle status thing is, that's like a quick little note. I don't know what they call those things, but I was like, I'm so tired of hearing about AI. Like, I'm
Yeah.
looking at my podcast feed, and podcasts that I listen to that are not about AI are talking about AI in whatever context um, they're in. So if it's behavioral, if it's business, if it's
Yeah.
writing, if it's creativity, it's like if even feminism, like they're all talking about AI. I'm like, why is this everywhere? Um, and I get it because, I am also working on integrating some of the LLM stuff for my clients for their podcasts and things like that. But I heard an interesting take on a podcast. This was on Tara McMullen's podcast, What Works, this morning. And she was talking about how the reliance on AI and these large language models like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and Gemini and whatever, um, the reliance on this AI driven um, expectation that everyone is now using AI
Mhm.
to help them draft their emails or their newsletters or their podcast content or their request for a raise, to your point, or something like that, is that the way that these models generate language tends to be very male coded, because the perception is the way that male coded language is more effective or more powerful or more
Mm.
confident or more aggressive, and it's sort of taking some of the more feminine aspects of communication out, because the feminine aspects of communication tend to be more relational,
Yep.
um, more emotional, and not that they're irrational, but just that there's more of that in there, and the bots, the AI bots don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't, that's not part of their programming at present. And so I'm just curious for you, I'm seeing a lot of coaches saying like, "Oh, just use ChatGPT to help you write that. Just use ChatGPT to help you submit that proposal." Just where does your mind go? What are your thoughts on this whole AI communication, languaging, confidence thing?
Do you want my real straightforward, honest opinion? Okay.
Of course, of course, of course.
Listen, and we're live. I'm going to go straight forward. You know
We're
what?
live.
Okay. AI is just another tool for us maybe to high leverage our time, but it's something else we are all, and I'm going to say we are all, because I'm going to keep it into a generalized collective, that we are bastardizing it. We are not here to this is here. Look at, I use Chat GPT because I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to send out this email. Will you just clean it up a little bit? Because I'm not great with typing and writing that way. It's not my cup of tea. Or I will put my newsletter, which you just got this way, into okay, is this legible? Is it? I mean, can you dot my I's and cross my T's for me here with my grammar so that when it is printed, uh, I agree with you. We all have to remember, even though I'm laughing as I'm saying this, we all have to remember that this is technology. And I almost feel like now that we're into a new year, you know how everybody gets crazy with, and there's nothing wrong with this. And now I just don't do this, but if you do it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, we go with New Year's resolutions and, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this and that. I feel that AI is becoming one of the heightened New Year's resolutions, even though it's been around for a while. I feel it's heightened, and it's going to take away our individuality if we are not careful. I will never say to people, "Oh no, don't use AI." But make sure you're careful on how you're using it. Now, me, I like to play around with my AI like it's my best friend, just to see what that chat does. I got a name for her and everything. I play like it's Christmas morning. I get a little goofy like a kid, just to test it and see where it goes and what it does and see how far you can push AI. But AI is not here to replace Okay, I'm going into negotiations with my boss tomorrow for more a step up to the next level of my career and salary. Chat GPT, write this conversation out to me. No, 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 no. However, if you got a lot of sensations going on, a lot of people say nerves. I try to get you out of head down to your body, sensations of this high stakes conversation, then maybe ChatGPT can help you with an outline so that you are walking in feeling more confident as you navigate through the conversation with all the sensations going on. You know, so there's a difference there. So that AI is not actually writing out the conversation, but maybe giving you some tips and tricks of the trade that maybe you are not familiar with before. But if you're going to do that, you always have to Kimize it, Andreize it. You have to personalize it. You have to, or everything's going to be maleized.
I did see, I've started seeing in some job postings, uh, organizations saying, we will not accept cover letters or resumes that were written by, or emails, not resumes, but cover letters or emails that were written by AI. And I was
Mm,
like, interesting. I wonder how they're deciding whether it was written by AI. I mean, I know
mm,
that there are like the
mm.
traditional tells and things like that. And I know that there's also software that, from what I hear, is not that reliable to detect whether something was written by AI or if they're just going by feel. Like if this feels like it might have been written by AI. Um, but I'm curious when you're working with somebody. So you talked a little bit about getting out of your head in the nerves space and getting more into your body and when you're getting ready to have like a difficult conversation. I also know that you have a lot of background working with women who are in traditionally male dominated industries and companies and spaces and roles. Um, and sometimes it can be useful to lean into more of that relational language. And sometimes you do need to be able to speak the language of the people who are in the room with you. When someone comes to work with you, is it usually that they have a specific thing, like a specific goal? Like, I need help doing this presentation, or I need help pitching for a raise, or is it more of like a general thing? What do people usually come to you with?
Great question. Both. It's both. It's usually, hi, I want to increase I need to work on my executive presence. So I had a call earlier today. She wanted to either go down the road of this year of working on her executive presence or get deeper with her keynote speaking. Well, you can't go deeper with your keynote speaking without a good executive presence. And by the way, executive presence isn't the power suit or the red sole shoes. I mean, if that can be part of it, but an executive presence is more coming back to the inside and navigating through the mindset and navigating through all the emotions. We're so conditioned that, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, I'm say that a few times and see with the palms, I mean, sweat, and then you're palpitating, and it's like being able to get out of your head and go, you know something, I'm scared, but I got butterflies in my stomach and I'm excited. So I'm scare-sighted. Or it could be something like, gosh, Andrea, you just got a puppy. I'm so excited you got a puppy. And I'm really sad because I just lost my dog in May and I'm missing her. Do you see? We can have mixed emotions at the same time, but we're so conditioned, have one stay up here, masculine, logical, egotistical. I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. And then we go into rooms and our mouth is drying up, our palms are sweating, and then we slip back and don't really receive and execute everything that we wanted to do in lifetime.
So, okay. In that sense, I'm bringing my phone over here because as I revealed to you moments before we started streaming,
Yes.
I took so
Yes.
let's bring up the banner here actually. So on Kim's website, which is kimbsmith.com, you can take a complimentary quiz. What is the quiz called again? I forgot.
Oh my gosh, you're
Is
asking
it? Oh, it's the bold voice quiz.
the bold voice quiz. Yes,
The
yes.
bold voice quiz. It's very quick, very painless.
I'm glad it's painless. We don't want pain.
I love a good quiz, especially a painless one. No essay questions required. And I always love, to me as an entrepreneur, and when I see other people with stuff on their site like, oh, free quiz, or like find out what your type is or something, I'm always curious like how well their quiz is designed. And of course, because everything is about me, it's always based around like, do I feel that the result is accurate to me, right? And if I feel that it's accurate, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like this is well designed. Um, and in this case, as soon as I got the results in the email of my quiz, my bold voice quiz, and as again, I'm a performer, I'm somebody who works in voice, I'm an entrepreneur, I help people elevate their voice through podcasting, through digital media. So everything is about voice. So I was curious to see what this would say. And I got the result of being that my dominant identity block is the proving performer. And it says, you've built a career on results, but deep down, you're still proving your worth. You over prepare, over deliver, and override your own needs. You're leading like you're on trial. The mindset shift is powerful presence doesn't require proof, it requires alignment. And there's some other things there. But I'm curious if I came to you, Kim, and I was like, okay, you've got my quiz, you see my results,
Mhm.
you see how I answered my questions, you know what I do for work, and I'm just trying to get ahead as an entrepreneur. Like, I feel confident sometimes and not confident other times. I feel like I should be more visible and should be taking more of a leadership role, but I don't really know what that looks like for me. Where do we begin? How do we begin working together to make this mindset shift, knowing that I'm a proving performer?
Ooh. First of all, well, I have a list of questions here is where we begin. Did you feel that that really hit the nail on the head, so to speak, for you?
Yes, because I do like you. If you go into my past, my academic past, I was a straight A student. I was valedictorian in high school. I was involved in all the extracurriculars. Again, stage performer, singer, auditioning. I think people who have a performance background and have gone through the pain of auditioning and putting your talent and your art in front of a panel of stone-faced judges who are like, "Thank you." And then you're just like wait to see if you're approved or accepted or chosen or not, and most of the time you are not chosen because there's only so many
Right,
roles
right,
to give away.
right.
I think it does something to your psychology.
Well, it does a lot for psychology. We get from a standpoint like that, we're standing there waiting for other people's approval.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I work with women on is being able to walk in any type of room, stop leaving opportunities on the table, release the outcome, and be able to walk out and go, high five. I gave it my all, and I don't care what the outcome is. That's what happens is in a lot of those situations is, you get those stone face. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And you're walking out going, okay, did they like me? Are they going to call me back? All this and that. We start taking our confidence outside of us and we're looking for our confidence within other people's opinions,
Mhm.
beliefs in the system. So a lot of places, I mean, where I would start with you is what does impromptu in live living color for you, Andrew? What does that look like for you? And then I would maybe watch you sweat a little bit because you are because you are so, and then talk about ask like, what do you want with your communication? Do you want to be able to walk into a room and be able to gracefully, my words, pivot, which is
Yeah.
means in that moment? Because you and I are going out to, hypothetically speaking, and I wish we were going out to dinner tonight. And I prefer it to be, of course, in Chicago because of all the great restaurants, right?
I mean,
We're going
hey,
out to dinner tonight. You're not going to plan for our conversation.
right.
You're going to be in the moment. What happens is we just go into different rooms. We see who's in the room, and especially women. We are societally trained to shift to who's in that room as
Mm,
opposed to staying within our bodies and moving forward with what the purpose of the whole room is about, the conversation is about. So there's a lot of different places that I start with clients. It all depends upon what they're coming to, whether like today it was executive presence or dig deeper into my speaking. Well, you can't dig deeper into your speaking without an executive
right.
presence. I mean, okay, so let's begin there with the conversation. And it's just getting to know what what does an executive presence mean to that person? Because it's different. It's like success. What does that mean to
Hmm.
you? It means something different to me. What do you see in that bold voice test, that quiz, not test, quiz, that poked at you that you would like to embrace and shift and go down? And then once you say what that answer is, then I get people start painting a picture for me, a verbal picture. What does
Mm.
that look like? Is it your best friend that shows up that way? Okay, because I need to know and hear how much comparing you do. What do you see in other people? When I see Kim walk into a room, gosh, she can really work a room. Well, okay, well, we can get you to do that if that's what you want, but we're going to do it on Andrea's terms, on
Mm. Mm.
Andrea's style.
That's incredible. Yeah, because that's kind of so like I know for me, if there's structure, like the more structure there is, so this is not surprising because I said earlier, if I have a script and a role and blocking and I know what the expectations are, then I can let go and I can get myself into the character, so to speak. And even with public speaking, because I do a fair amount of public speaking and teaching and training now. And as long as I know, like, I have been invited here to this space for this audience of these people to train on this topic, and I know what's expected of me, that is great. But as soon as I walk into the after party at the event, and it's completely unstructured, and people are milling about and drinking cocktails and eating appetizers and having little conversations with each other, and maybe I don't really know anyone there like super well, and I'm like, ooh, as soon as it's an unstructured thing, that's when I get the sweaty palms and the
Mhm.
butterflies and the like, do I break into the conversation? Do I not break into the conversation? It's in those, networking moments. So yeah, that's interesting. You just made me realize that that's kind of the differentiation, is the structure and like knowing what the expectations of the interaction are, knowing what my role is in that space versus like, hey, everybody's here, come on in.
That's it. First of all, that's a very safe environment for you. I'll share with you in November, I was at a conference that I presented to on two different occasions. And one of the presenting I was doing is I was moderating a panel, and this panel is women. We're going deep. I mean, we're going for not a dry eye in the audience. They're hitting some things, motherhood and careers, and they're hitting it, and these women hit it. But let me tell you, and a couple of people had said to me, out of that was one of the best presentations. Well, let me tell you what I was dealing with. Okay, dinner the night before was not sitting well with me. Not only am I have to be on stage on Thursday, I also have to get on a flight to fly into another conference. So guess what? I'm not eating all day because I'm afraid I'm going to have a stomach ache or something, right? So I'm dealing with that. I'm dealing with these women and all their nerves. It wasn't even, we didn't even get into the body of sensei. It was nerves. So that, and then I walk into the room and go, we're going to do a panel and I'm going to stand behind a lectern. I've never stood behind a lectern it's always fireside chats, it's chairs, so I've got that. So now I'm in the middle of the women. Eh, eh, you have to be able to pivot and navigate through
Yeah.
it all. You have to be able to do that. I mean, and I mean, I was able to stand at the lectern. I've got 3 women on this side, 2 women on this side, and me in the middle. And just when I'm asking questions, when I'm navigating a panel, I direct the questions and say, this person lead us off. And by the way, this question's for the whole panel, whereas sometimes they're expecting different questions. And then I had to step, and I'm doing this, I had to step away from that so that they can all connect. And I wasn't blocking that energy. And then I would have to come back forward and then have to turn to the side. There's no right or wrong way. That takes practice in those impromptu moments to be able to pivot and shift. When I had a script, I had
Yeah.
questions, and
Yeah.
I was asking those questions going, this is not going to work. And it's one question, I'm like, take it away. Go, let's take it away. And it was a very good panel. But you have to be ready to, you can, have that. I got paper here, have that script. This is the comfort zone. This is where a lot of magic can take away from us with this
Yeah.
stuff, where you're in that moment with that script and going, okay, that just felt okay. I really wanted to do this over here, which was more of your intuition. And sometimes we can block that when we've got those scripts.
What do you have, like a toolkit of favorite exercises or techniques to get you more into your body? Because this is resonating a lot with me because as a performer, even though I like having that structure and I like
Mhm.
having the script and I like knowing the expectation, I'm looking at our Instagram and Anna Xavier from the podcast space is on our Instagram and had commented, love this topic. Networking events can be quite stressful when we don't know what our role is with that audience. But you're reminding me that even in a performance situation, even when you know what the structure is, things can still go wrong in live
Yes.
theater, right? Because it's not being, edited later. There's no second take. You're just there in the moment, and things can go wrong in a split second,
Yeah.
or unexpected things can happen. And the more out of my head and in my body I am, the more I can react and respond to those things that have unexpectedly happened and still stay within context, right? Still stay within
Agreed.
that character. And I love in your example, you were describing how you were reading what about that setup with the lectern and being sort of positioned there in the middle, what energetically didn't feel right for you, and how could you reposition yourself and restructure what you were doing in order to create that energy flow that helped you feel more grounded in your authentic representation, where it felt, even though here we're now given this lectern um, space where I'm more with the comfy fireside chat thing, how can I make this feel more comfortable and make this feel more like that energetics? So that's my long-winded way of saying you're brilliant, and also asking
Thank you.
and also asking like what are some simple techniques that we can do to especially in a high stakes situation be more in our bodies and less in our heads, because I think that's key.
Yes. Great question. Very great question is, yes, I do have a lot of tools. And I'm also, I just have to say this out of complete respect is I'm Step Into Your Moxie, Speak Up and Influence certified. So a lot of these tools I use are from that. And I love saying that because I just don't want people to think, oh God, Kim made all those up. No, she didn't.
Right.
She's gone through certifications. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we can use is we use all day long, every day, 24 hours, even when we are sleeping. And it's free and it's called breathing. Breathing. Breath. Yeah, there we go. We are such a society of blah, 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 blah. I gotta speak. I got hurt. Oh my God, I can't be quiet. And there's too much quiet in my mind. Oh my God, I'm really nervous. And what happens when we start speaking faster, the listeners' brains cannot comprehend. We can only comprehend so much at a specific cadence of talking. So breathe. And I like to do those guttural deep breaths before I walk in. You want to be sitting there in a meeting going, you're looking and you're like, are you okay? Do we need to call 911? Those guttural deep breaths, it doesn't get rid of the energies, but what it does, it helps bring things down to the ground of good old fashioned Mother Earth here. Let her take some of the weight. One, and two, when you are in those conversations, is not only just breathing, but my favorite P word in the whole wide world is called pause. Pausing. It's that power of the pause. And sometimes with that power of the pause, we even need to stop and smile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those, and here's one other off the top of my head that I love, that I work with both men and my male and female clients. I work with 3 animal archetypes, which is part of the certification. And we all default to one of those animal archetypes, and it's
Oh.
it's a lot for me to even in the show to go into. So we default to one out of the 2 animal archetypes when we all need to be in the middle. I guess I'm visualizing. Okay, you got one animal archetype over here, got the animal other archetype over here, where we want to be in the middle with this animal archetype, where we default more to this. That means we're grounded, we're in our bodies, we're managing, not controlling. We are managing what is coming out of our mouths. We're not shrinking back because someone looked at me sideways, or we're not leaning in because the anxiety and we're getting way too much, is being more defaulted into this one animal archetype. So we are grounded. I used to with my keynotes, I used to come out on the stage and go, okay, let's go. I'm an ex-high impact aerobic instructor. I dare you to try and keep up with me. Come on, boop, 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 and fast all over the place. I was going and moving so fast that by the time I got done, one, I was exhausted. Two, I felt like I was on a runaway train and I wasn't managing what I was saying. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like pulling me down the tracks. And then I would get out afterwards and go, dang, did I cover everything I want to say? What did I even say? Was the message clear? And then that's chipping away at my communication confidence,
Mm.
because now I'm second guessing myself. So, and actually, through this whole conversation, I am using the power of pause because it's helping me slow down to really feel in and listen into the question that you're asking me, to make sure that I'm delivering what you're asking me, also throwing in some curveballs to take us in a because I know Andrea can do this and we can have some fun with it. But being able to pause and really feel into what I'm saying and not necessarily do this. Oh, yeah, and, on my website, yeah, there is that bold voice, quick. Oh, yeah, when we're doing that's vocalized, speaking, by the way.
Yeah.
We're way out here, we're thinking of what we're going to say next, and there's this gap between way out here and our mouths, so we have to think. So we go up or we go down, and in between that gap, a lot of ums, ahs, ees, ahs, filler words.
Yeah.
And that's the space where the critical dialogue takes the opportunity and says, gotcha. And now it blows up.
Yeah, this is interesting because in the work that I'm doing with clients, I'm usually working with the podcast hosts, the podcast creators, as a producer and editor. And if you're watching the live video or the replay of the live video on YouTube or LinkedIn or even Instagram, you will notice that Kim does not use a lot of and and so and those filler words. If you're listening to the edited audio later, you will also notice that, but you won't know that I have not edited her as much as I do edit some guests. And it is a common question and a common thing that I get from people who are, and usually women, who are thinking about podcasting or who have already decided to step into podcasting for the first time, and there's a lack of confidence with their voice as a podcast host,
Mhm.
and the filler thing can be a big thing. And sometimes if you're hiring an editor, your editor is going to minimize some of those and make it sound really smooth and make it sound natural and more how you would normally speak if you weren't feeling the pressure of being on the mic or on camera or having to do it correctly, because the more you're in that stage, the more filler words and ums and hesitations and vocalizations you're going to make. And people will always say, "Well, how do I say less? How do I do it?" And this simple thing of pausing and reflecting on what you're going to say. I think sometimes when we're on the mic or on camera, we think that we're on live radio or broadcast television where there can't be a pause, like no dead air. No, I trained in broadcast communication. So it's like no dead air from the network television, days. So really allowing yourself that space to listen, to respond, to think internally rather than searching for what you were supposed to say out here somewhere can really help with that. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter if I use filler words because that's just how we naturally communicate. It's just how I talk. It's just natural." And I say that especially if you're speaking for influence, especially if you're speaking for authority, especially if you want to be perceived in a particular way, it does affect the perception that the audience or the listener or the viewer has of you and your expertise and your messaging, even if it sounds, quote, natural to you. That was very long-winded, but yeah, you brought up this idea of filler words, and I wanted to point that
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Of course, now once you point out that someone doesn't use a lot of filler words, what happens is they tend to become self-conscious, and then they suddenly start saying more. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
just something I wanted to note for those who are watching the video version that has not been edited, is just how smooth and clean that communication comes across and the clarity that it comes across minus fillers. And I love this idea of pausing and being able to reflect internally and be present with what someone is saying, for both the podcast hosts and also for those who are being podcast guests, who are going on podcasts to talk about their passion projects or their expertise or their business or whatever it is that they're doing. There are a lot of folks who are looking to be guests on podcasts who should come work with you.
Well, yes, and maybe there's a workshop you and I can offer in the very near future. 'Cause I love partnerships. Just saying, just putting that out there to the universe. But you are right. And people do say that. They'll filler words sometimes, like you and I are out to dinner. There's gonna be some filler words in casual conversation. And go listen to somebody like, and when I say this, that doesn't mean I'm the biggest fan of him, but go listen to Howard Stern. Go listen to Howard Stern when he started 30 years ago to
Yeah.
where he's at now and his presentations. Now, I'm not a supporter of his shock jock stuff. I just drives me crazy. But boy, when he turns on for those interviews, he is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it has taken practice. And that's the same thing with minimizing those filler words. When we're using filler words, we are diluting our message. I sit in audience. So when I'm at conferences and things like that, and people are presenting, I'm wearing multiple hats when I'm sitting there. I'm wearing a hat as a participant learning. I'm wearing a hat as a coach, a strategist of what I do for a living. And I'm wearing a hat of let's just come out of everything and really hone in on that person. Well, I can tell you energy. I can tell you when the surges of the nerves are going up and down through that person. I can tell you when they've gone off course. And I get very impatient. And I'm going to say this not to be mean. I'm saying it because I'm impatient.
Mm.
When someone is presenting or talking and there's a lot of filler words, I want to put my hands on that person's shoulders with all tender, loving care, shake them and just say, "Can you just say what it is you want to say?" Because you're diluting. And my brain, okay, what'd you say? Now I'm confused. Say it again. What'd you say? Okay. It's so hard when we're filling our thoughts. And that power of that pause helps us slow down
Yeah.
so we don't have to. And and I get clients, pause. Oh my God. So how long should I pause? And I'm like, oh my God, there's no time to the pause. Here's a pause. Hi, Andrea. How are you today? I just paused.
Yeah.
Seconds. It's nanoseconds. It's seconds.
Yeah. I'm gonna pivot a little bit as we're coming to the towards the last leg of the conversation. And can I ask you, you mentioned that you had corporate experience and then you shifted into entrepreneurship and being self-employed. Can you share a little bit of that story?
Yes. Yes. I was in corporate. Gosh, I think that was I'm just going to be a cat today. And that was in my second life. I don't know. That was a long time ago. I was very successful in corporate America and had a lot of just wrongful things go on, but yet very successful. And I was also faking it and lying and didn't realize the imposter syndrome term because, again, this is back in the 90s. I didn't even know that existed, and I was in it. Only woman in the room and spent many a days on the bathroom floor after meetings because these men were freaking brutal, brutal, brutal. As I'm the shining star of the company, these men were brutal.
Mm.
So I shifted from that, and I've always had this, like I'm a wild animal and you put me in a cage type feeling in corporate. So I stepped away. I stepped away without a plan. I stepped away with basically a screw this kind of an attitude. And my first business was a fitness business. I wouldn't recommend anybody doing that. I would recommend making sure you've got, a nice, doesn't have to be the prettiest strategic plan, but a nice soft strategic plan before you do that and a little bit of backup. And I also say when you do step away from, if and when you do, and this is your trajectory to step away from a corporate position to go into entrepreneurship, someone told me this, and they say you have to every single day being an entrepreneur, you have to go out in the backyard and clean up your own doo-doo before you come and do anything else. And I'm like, well, that's a little ironic because I've got a dog, so, but we have to work on our stuff because being an entrepreneur, we're looking at our stuff every single solitary day. And some days it's easy. And some days my critical dialogue, you can't, no, she's over there in the corner. You can't see her, is just so loud. We have to be strong enough to be able to step away and go, what do I need in this moment? And I got to get away. I got to go do something. So that's my big suggestion. I just eased into it and I'm not going to paint this pretty. I stepped away from it a couple of times as well and went back into corporate and didn't last too well and came right back into my business. It's been up, it's been down, it's been a bumpy ride. Don't let me get you wrong. It's been over 25 years as an entrepreneurship. And just last week, I said, I don't need to do this anymore. I quit. And that lasted 5 seconds and we just move on. It is not for the faint of heart. It's making sure you've got people in your corner and in your circle like Andrea or Kim, because we need this. We need to be able to go somewhere to celebrate the highs and also to be around people where you can lean on for the lows as well. So
And
that was my transition in a really, crazy little way there. And I've had multiple business over the years.
And so that is perfect because that brings me to my next question, which is if we're talking about when your art becomes your job, and I am defining art pretty openly and also job openly, whether that's a job within an existing entity or whether that is a business or whether that is a podcast or a passion project or something like that. But it's something that you put into a structured way with a set of expectations and desired outcomes and that you're, needing to do with some consistency. So when I pose that question to you, what is your art? What would you say, like, how would you define your art or your passion that you are bringing to the work that you're doing?
Oh my gosh, you just lit my heart up with that question. I'm like, oh, I heard you talking, and then I really leaned in. Okay, you just really got me going on fire. You know what? The art of my business, the art of my job, the art of my day is everything that I coach and strategize on is everything I've ever experienced. And I can still periodically experience it. My experience is not days, weeks, months, years on end. They're now moments. And that's taken some work to get to, but I'm thrilled to insane pieces, man or woman, and especially a woman, because our voices have been marginalized and are still, in some cases, marginalized, where we really embrace our voice and up the level of confidence and are going into rooms and laying it on down and walking out and going, oh my gosh, I did it. See, to me, that is thrilling. That's thrilling.
I love that. I'm going to ask you one final question before we close out, and it's going to be open-ended. So, before I do that, a little bit of business for our audience here, which is to make sure if you are interested in all of the things that we've been discussing, if you want to take your Bold Voice quiz and find out what your next steps are to building more of that confidence, you can go to kimbsmith.com. Of course, it'll be linked in the show notes. For our audio listeners who are listening in the podcast app, I don't go back and put it on YouTube and linked. I'm sorry, guys, but you can find Kim. And we'll have the links in the show notes for the episode version. Also, as I mentioned, this is part of our series on the creative imposter called When Your Art Becomes Your Job. And you can find the full playlist on YouTube of all of our live streams, past and upcoming, at bit.ly/art versus job. This is the worst short link I have ever made because versus has so many different ways you can spell it, but it's bit.ly/art vs job. And that's where you can find the YouTube playlist. Of course, if you prefer the edited audio, you can find it in whatever your favorite podcast app is at The Creative Imposter. That said, these interviews do come out weeks and weeks after the live stream. So if you're watching on the social media platforms, you're getting the info first. And then the edited versions with a new intro from me will come out in the future. And last but not least, if you are interested in learning more about podcasting, whether you are already podcasting and you want to know how to take your show up to the next level, maybe you're stuck on a strategy question, or if you are considering podcasting as part of your communication, part of owning your voice, you can right now book a complimentary 30-minute strategy call with me at bit.ly/powerfulpod, bit.ly/powerfulpod. That's for a limited number of sessions where it's not a sales call. I'm not pitching you. If you really want to know what my services are, I'll tell you. But in general, it's really just come to me with a question and we'll figure it out. I'll do a deep dive, in a mini deep dive, medium deep, shallow dive. No, shallow dive doesn't sound good. We'll take a look and listen to your show and website and see what your question is and give you some ideas of what your next step is. And all of that business aside, Kim, is there anything else that is coming to your mind as I'm jabbering away about URLs and links and quizzes and consultations and things like that? Is there anything coming up for you that you feel like you didn't get a chance to say to the audience, or anything to kind of close out that feels prescient?
Well, first of all, I think that 30-minute call is generous, and if people aren't hopping on that, Andrea, I'm over here going, okay, that is a generous, generous call, and I highly recommend, even though you're not pitching, so to speak, find out your services anyways. You can always put it on a back burner and pull it out when you're ready. Anyways, what else is coming? Communication is the core to confidence. Communication is the core to your presence, your identity, your brand, your messaging, your reputation, communication is. And don't just go out there and, oh, I'm going to read a book or I'm going to throw this in ChatGPT to be better. And I'm sorry, because let me tell you, I've tried it because I experimented with everything. It does not work. And if you're sitting here listening to this show going, oh my God, I'm going to be a podcast guest multiple times this year, and I'm thinking about hosting a podcast, I really do need to leverage up the way I'm presenting myself. Reach out. I mean, don't just reach out to Andrea, reach out to me, just reach out and really don't go into comparison because I've watched Andrea and she presents this way, or I listen to Kim and this is a skill that takes practice, and we are not going for polished perfection. Practice. It's practice.
I love it. Kim, thank you so much. Thank you to our live viewers. Thank you to our replay viewers. And thank you to our audio listeners in the future. And we'll see you next week, Thursday, 3 p.m. Central. I have another incredible guest for you. We're going to be talking about travel and destinations and charting your course. Very, very exciting. And here is the end of our stream. Kim, don't go anywhere.
Mhm.